tale is told that the child was born in the grave, delivered itself of its tomb within tomb, and, mole-like, began of a life of its own underground, rising at nights when the Mexicans who lived in the Mexican houses round the edge of the graveyard were playing their mandolins and harmonicas and singing their passionated, luted, summer-beat songs in the pallid summer nights, to wander phantom over the countryside. What rose from the grave to journey in the night-time? People reported this light that seemed to rise like a ball from the grave of Allie Benson and her child, and stray over the ground as if it were some animal come out of its hole or cave at night to graze or cavort or wander under a moon in the night breeze, in the lunar stillness. It was the Mexicans who saw it at first from their windows and from their porches. Then night fishermen saw it along the river banks, and it was seen along the railroad tracks at night or in the woods by campers disturbed on their pallets. Boney Benson, hearing of this and knowing his own secret, came to hide in the graveyard at night to watch for this rising shape. And so it came to be known as Boney Benson's light. This is the tale that was told. At first he laid over the grave with his own hands, and at night a piece of flat slate from the side of the river to hold down the phantom. And then under the moon the Mexicans could see him lying on the cold slab of slate, thigh against the rock, beating fists on the horizontal wall, knocking, calling down, fingertips, lips, thighs upon the wall between him and his bereaved member.
So Boney Benson was this double man, railroad man at the depot, strange and shut up, swinging his lantern, and creature of his private room. When he opened his door to a dark room, closed it behind him, and mashed the button to turn on the light, he burst into this possessed shape, haunted and spectral in a lighted box of a room. And then the light went out. He appeared at the graveyard on his horse. There his night search began. And when he saw this lighted shape rise from the grave, he began to follow it. And this was his regular nighttime journey, following this shape where it went. The grave was seldom left alone or unvisited. It drew people to it to spy upon it. 3 strong young men in their time of wildness had no house could hamper or hush, had been hunting on their horses one night, and they rode upon the grave to explore the gossip tale of Boney Benson's light. And when their horses reared back and wailed and whinnied, and their hound dogs bayed for death, cowering behind the bushes, the 3 young men looked to see why. The slate lid of the grave of Allie Benson and her ghost child was broken open. There was a ragged hole in it, and something had escaped. In their terror they sat fixed and gaping on their rearing horses, when suddenly a figure of a man stepped out from behind the trees that circled the grave, and it was Boney Benson. "I've seen it, the light. It has risen and gone yonder. Will you follow it with me?" On their horses they went and followed, the 3 young men and Boney Benson. The story told first by the 3 young men, and then on year after year by descendants and followers, kin and friend. They left the record, else how could we have known it? Is that the 4 followers on horseback rode and rode into the night, following the shape of light, until they came upon a field where all the little white children were, the grave children, misbegotten, wasted-faced, cat-sucking hair grown dank to their heels, fingernails long as spurs, one-eyed and musty smelling of the odor of wilted cemetery roses and moldering zinnia stems, dressed in long, loose-hanging little country child garments of faded no color, which hung limp upon them from their shoulders with only ragged holes for ragged arms, parentless, homeless, orphans of dirt, children of earth, musting among roots in a graveyard kindergarten, pioneers, blood kin, breakers of wilderness, homesteaders. Yet how even among these one of them would not stay, not even among these, memberless. It orphaned itself even of orphans, and strayed away on. And they followed the light, Boney Benson and the three young men, on and on horseback, the hounds following. Boney Benson on his purple horse ahead, and leading all as quiet and passionate as men in love, going on away into the far night time, following the lighted shape, and on away to the very rim of the world it seemed. What they saw as they rode, was it a mockery or a blessing that grieved them, or a vision that changed them, or gave them a meaning of the haunted and bedeviled world they lived in? In a little glen they passed, did they not see mother, nurse, and child at laden breasts, father standing at a distance, leaning on a staff? They were resting and strengthening themselves, for they were on some journey too. On a log did they not find woman and child, man under a tree where a lighted lantern hung, Madonnas in meadows, mothers among rocks and caves, landscapes with martyrs, with hermits in hills and trees, a husband leading back a back-turned wife from death, wings and limbs of a lost sun falling from the sky, and once in a broad, grassy, moonlit place, two lovers on their backs, side touching side. And then the followers saw him turn, rise as if lifted on wings, and light upon her like an insect on a flower, so airily, and arms and legs winged and flared, he gathered over her in all grace and lightness, riding aloft her as if floating over her. And where he touched her closest, he pierced her in such a whirring and bumbling and trembling that he welted and blazed her and left her stung. And the followers went on. So they went on in their wonder, losing the light betimes, and Boney Benson crying out in his breast, out of this darkness, where is the light? And then finding the light again, going on behind it. The May night all in them, the stars, the blue naked night, the full white lips of the young moon, the silver, the blue, and the sweetness of the wing's limb, gentle and delicate as a young girl's, all in them. So they went on into a strange and uterine country, under an astral light, and saw in the darkling west the white star lowering toward the horizon, lying on the rind of heaven, and thought, tell us that flesh is a cold and boned cask that drops into whatever darkness lies below the rim, that flesh sets as star does into darkness and never rises in the burning east again, nor burns the long night through as star does. Somewhere along the way in this country, the three young men turned back, their passion wearied, saying, where you go we cannot follow any longer. But Boney Benson went on. He died in another country, and was brought back to this graveyard to be buried next to the grave of his wife and child. But the record was made and kept, and the light did not vanish. It continued to rise, and you can still see it on any night to this very day. And who will follow it to carry on the record.
Yet what to tell? What to proclaim out of it all? That messages of words travel into territory where there are no words, into that wordless region where there's only a kind of music, a wail or a sigh or a stifled cry, the gesture of the inexpressible, and they carry a message there to leave it. What we must say can be discovered, whispered, in the overbreath of what lies on a piece of paper. There is a music produced out somewhere, outside and over what is put down in words. Words can only carry us on a way to what waits so splendidly and purely and overwhelmingly unspeakable. We are delivered to that. There lies the territory, the unuttering region we are led to, that region like the deep underwater zones that house the sunken gesture, a slowly undulating worm in the lower light, the winnowing curve of a root, the glisser of a tiny slime egg, the burst and glow and glimmer out of ooze from which all seeds break, the first and forgotten source, and to conceive the world over again in the image of the life of this territory of unutterance is all worthy enterprise. There lies pure and breathing the fallen unread message, the unjoined member. There lies the imperishable record of what happened. This is what you thought, and this is what happened on that terrible day in that accursed city, when a cry long ago uttered rose and was given back. In that city that did not know that at all moments Icarus was falling, a watched apple dropping, Europa raped upon a wreathed bull across an ignorant pasture, Orpheus leading back a lover who could be turned to stone by the look of his eyes, a piece of paper rising in a windy street, a ghost called back from the grave to take his name and his remembrance in a message that was given back.